Welcome back to Women's Plain, everyone. Today I have a really special guest, very close to my heart. We have Judy Frost here, who is the CEO and co-founder of Beli, a new innovative restaurant discovery and recommendation app. So thank you so much for coming. We're so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. Let's just start with, for those who don't know what Beli is, what's your elevator pitch for the app?
Yeah, for sure. So Beli's a social restaurant list keeping app. And so think Letterboxd or Goodreads for restaurants. So you keep lists of everywhere you've been and want to try, and you do it with your friends. And we launched in summer of 2021. And since then, we've amassed over 80 million ratings. So we're actually one of the largest restaurant review platforms in the world.
Wow.
It's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats.
Really fast.
I am a huge fan of the app. I know we met a few years ago before you even launched.
Yeah.
So we'd love to just dive into, I guess, your story and how you ended up becoming the founder of Beli.
Yeah.
So what did you study in college, and what was your first job after?
Yeah, so I never in a million years thought I'd be a founder. Let's start with that. I always thought I would go into investments and finance. My dad's in finance, and I grew up thinking, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I went to college. I went to the University of Michigan, and I studied economics and organizational studies with a minor in statistics. I was like all in on finance. And so then from there, I went to McKinsey and worked in their internal investment office. So I was an investment analyst. And so, yeah, I did all that stuff, and I think it's related and has really helped me in starting a company, but I had no idea I was going to do that.
So where did the passion for food come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I started Beli with my co-founder and husband, Elliot, and probably no surprise, but completely restaurant obsessed and really always have been. And so for Elliot, he grew up in New York City. Only thing he ever wanted for a birthday was to try a new restaurant. He would walk home from school in like elementary school, like reading menus on his way home, just totally restaurant obsessed from day one. I had a very restaurant but very different upbringing. So I grew up in Michigan. My dad, like I said, is an investor. He's in finance, and he invests largely in public restaurant chains.
Really?
And so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were going to, you name the chain. I've been there hundreds, if not thousands of times, but we were talking about the business side of it, management and fees and all of that good stuff. And so then when Ellie and I met, we met working together at McKinsey. And like so many people, we built our relationship around trying new restaurants. And so we had this massive like Google map of everywhere we were eating. It was ranked color-coded, notes, favorite dishes. Mm-hmm. If you're on Beli, it probably sounds familiar. But it was very clear to us that it really wasn't built for the problem. And then the other thing going on was we were going to restaurants that were supposed to be really great, had really good critic reviews, or really high 5-star ratings, and we just weren't that happy with them ourselves. So that was kind of where our love for it came, and then where we started like kind of thinking about the problem. But yeah.
Did Elliot ever think he was going to be a founder? Did he have more of an entrepreneurial spirit than you?
Yeah, no, he definitely, I don't think he did at all either. But he was more, I was very much like, hey, I'm going into finance. I got into my first role. I was like, whoa, there were no women in the room. And from there decided, okay, I'm going to go to business school. I'm going to go on the younger end and learn the skills and network I need to help women in finance. Elliot at McKinsey had fallen in love with coding.
Okay.
And so he went to business school. We went to business school together. We do everything together. I'm sure that'll come up a lot.
It's really cute.
But he went being like, I'm going into tech. I think he thought he was going to go into big tech, but it was maybe a more obvious transition for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So then you guys go to HBS together.
Yeah.
And then during that time, were you kind of exploring on starting something together in food?
Yeah. So we got there. And the first semester, our plans were what our plans were. I was going to stay in finance. Elliot was going to stay in or pivot to tech. And but once we got there, I think past the first semester, we started seeing all these different opportunities for entrepreneurship. We're like, oh, we kind of have this problem we've been thinking about for a while now. Should we see if it's a problem for other people? And the school pays a small stipend for you to do it as your summer internship. And so that was the first time we were like, okay, let's explore this and let's just do something totally different. Like it's business school, it's the time to explore. And that's what led us to jump into it. But it wasn't something that we thought about at all before that.
That's amazing. And what did the first kind of how did Beli become an idea? What did the first almost like product and idea and sort of like product map look like for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So we spent that first summer not building that much. It really was doing a lot of research.
Okay.
And really trying to understand the problem. And then once we understood the problem, like figuring out like what the true fix is or the solution to it. And so I think when we started researching, we found two things. Beyond the two things we had found previously, our own problems, we found two additional things. One was that pretty much every foodie kept some sort of restaurant list.
Okay.
It was a note, Excel doc, spreadsheet, but there was no centralized place where people were keeping those together. And the other thing we realized is that none of those people had ever written an online review in their lives. So kind of hearing those two things, we're like, why isn't there something out there? There's a problem. And then when we started researching the 5-star system and just over 60% of it, I think it's over 70% now, depending on the platform, of reviews are 1s or 5s. It's like totally nuts. There's no distribution. Taste is personal, but online reviews, there's like one score that's supposed to fit how everyone feels. There were all these different problems. And so I think we got to the end of that summer and we're like, oh, yes, there's a very big problem here. But that's how we initially explored it.
Got it. And then was there a class at school where you were kind of building out the initial idea?
Yeah, so once we did our first summer and we're like, okay, we're doing this, like this is really big. I don't know if we thought it was really big, but we thought there definitely was a problem. So your first year at HBS, you can't pick any of your classes. And then the second year, you can pick all your courses. And so we picked courses such that we could be working on Beli full time. So it was either free time to work on Beli, like independent projects, or classes that we thought would help us in building Beli. So every single class I took second year was related to Beli.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was a prototype, like the very first version of it?
It's a little bit crazy, and I think this is mostly just luck. Very similar to what it is today.
Wow.
I mean, it's funny to look back at them. There are some obvious differences. It was clunky. It didn't work at all. Honestly, even when we launched, there was a version where like people's lists, like in the first couple of months, would like go away and like we could recover them, but like huge, massive bugs that over time we obviously fixed and improved on. But it was very similar. The idea was you kept a list, places you'd been to, and of those you wanted to try, but the Ben was really the focus. And there was a leaderboard. You could follow your friends. And so that was always core, and there was a feed. And so, yeah, but that's also very lucky. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. And who was like how did you test Beli? Like, who were your first users? Did you have like a beta group? Were you doing it at HBS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we probably did that part completely wrong. And so don't do what we did. So when we first started, our first users were our classmates.
Okay.
And you don't want your friends being users because they're not honest and the feedback isn't good. They're not the persona, so they're not really, or they're not typically behaving how your normal user would behave. And so it's really hard to act on the feedback. But we got very lucky where our first users were just way worse. And so we just got lucky. And so during school, when we had some sort of MVP, it was all of our classmates. And then we actually graduated in 2020 into the pandemic. And so we were already, like, we were doing this full time. And then it was like, oh, shoot, restaurants are closed. We're not sure it's safe to eat out. We cannot put a product like this out right now. And so then for about a year, we had a 100-person beta, which, again, was just our classmates and friends. And we just kept iterating on the product. But, yeah, don't do what we did there.
So, yeah, I guess, like, obviously jumping into that, what was it like, obviously, being in a pandemic with this product you wanted to launch? And how did you kind of pivot and then launch in 2021?
Yeah, so we mostly just were building and building a couple different things. So we were building the product, looking at what our users were doing, even though it was a small subset, testing things, iterating. And then the other thing we were doing was we were building our social media. So for a very long time, it's probably still, I think, when we met, but for a very long time, people didn't even know we were an app. People thought we were, and today I think some people still don't know we're an app, but thought we were just food influencers. And so we were really just building and iterating, and then finally in spring of 2021, we were like, okay, like people, like there's still a problem. People still want this, or we don't have jobs, and we need to figure that out. And so we had never said anything about the app on our socials. It really was just about building a community around food. And then in spring of 2021, we put out our first Beli specific video. It was like a meme video with me and the map in the background and some like meme type A like sound. And we got thousands of downloads that day. We didn't have an app on the App Store, so we were like sending out our test flight link. And so we're like, great, people still want this, and it worked out, fortunately. But yeah, that was the progression.
I love the community that you built, obviously. I think we met when it was just on Instagram, and I was on beta since like 2022, January or something like that. Love the app. And I think it's really incredible, like the community that you built for the app. Like a lot of people don't even know that it's the app, but then once they do, like now, like, it's synonymous to like a Yelp or like Instagram. Like everyone knows about it now. And I guess like how have you kind of focused on marketing? I know it's very like it's you and Elliot behind all the videos. Yeah. How do you kind of approach that, and what's your strategy for gaining new users?
Yeah, for sure. So for us, it was really, really important from day one that our growth be organic, because it's a social media. It's like, if this isn't viral, this doesn't work. And so we were very against paid marketing. And so we were like, hey, let's build a community on social and really just talk about something we're very passionate about. And then that was how we got all of our initial users. And then it was like, okay, but it really needs to be the app and it needs to be product led. And so we really focus on like how in the product we can make it such that you send referrals and like lean into the network effects and make it so the app is actually better when your friends are on it. But yeah, that was important. Like day one was very important to us. And today maybe it's even more important to us. But yeah, it's something we think a lot about.
Awesome.
And how did you kind of, I don't know, make the app sort of go, I guess, viral or like picked up by also other foodie influencers? I feel like you also kind of became a foodie influencer in the beginning of when before it was hot. Like I feel like it's like recently now been so huge on social media. But how were you kind of the beginning of that as well too?
Yeah, I think it was really just, hey, like this is something we love, let's talk about it. And then within the app, just making sure that like it was very shareable and like we do lean into invites wherever we can. But there was no we were honestly very afraid of influencers for a while, as in like we were in that community and like loved all the people we were meeting and a lot of them became good friends, but we were like, hey, I don't know if an influencer talks about this, if people just go on Beli and they won't actually keep their own list and they'll just be passive users, and we didn't want that. And so we were trying to avoid that, and we didn't know how to react to that, or like we're even afraid to test it. And so we were like, let's just make the product grow itself, and that's kind of how we thought about it. But then over time, we all these just amazing people have been so supportive and awesome. And the people that would come on from the influencers posting about us, they're on average even better than normal users. Normal, I don't know what normal means, but like on a person who just finds us from some other channel. But yeah, it's been really interesting, and the food community. So I'm sure it's so awesome. Like it's just such a cool community. We've met like really good friends from it.
That's incredible. Yeah. And obviously you started in New York City. Yeah. It's been exploding, obviously. I think, is it now international? I don't know. Yeah. But how are you continuing to grow Beli as well?
Yeah, so it really is the product. And it's really like, hey, we started and we were just restaurants. We weren't bars, cafes, coffee shops, etc. We're like, let's just get this one thing right and then expand. The other food-related categories made just a lot of sense. So within, I think, the first year or two, we added all those categories. But in terms of how it grew, I mean, we started because it was all New York content. Most of our users were in New York. But someone would be visiting a friend, or like they were in school and they went somewhere else and they'd take it and give it to their other friend, or they studied abroad and they'd give it to a friend, or someone was coming to New York for a trip and they found us and they brought it back home. And then that person shared it with all of their friends, and like that's how it grows. And so at this point, we have major growth in most major cities in the U.S. and now abroad. We're actually growing quite a bit, which is really, really awesome. But yeah, it's all been organic and just through our users.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the first app I look at when I'm traveling. I like cross-check it with like Google Maps to see actually where it is. So I think it's been great in terms of like traveling, finding out what your friends think. Like the average score of like your friends and just like users of the app is also very helpful. How many users do you have now on the app?
So we don't share user numbers. I know. I'm sorry. It's really annoying. We just do the review stuff. Yeah. So we talk over the 80 million reviews. But yeah, yeah.
And then how are you kind of iterating? I know in the beginning I was giving you a lot of feedback. A lot of my friends were like, oh, text, the founders to give them feedback. How are you kind of iterating every day and taking into account like user feedback?
Yeah. It's still the same. Everyone on the team reads every piece of feedback that comes in. That's really, really important to us. Like every decision is based around our users and what we're hearing from them. And I think it's one of probably the first thing when someone joins the team that they're like, oh, wow, they come in because everyone on the team is really big Beli users, and they come in and they're like, oh, I have all these ideas. I'm like, that's so awesome. But that's your one opinion, and I need to hear it 5 times before I'll even consider it. And so it was just all centered around our users and making sure we're listening to them and then doing very small MVPs, like launching whatever the easiest product is to launch and seeing how people react. We A/B test everything and then iterate that way. But yeah, it's still exactly what you did. It's so awesome. Our users are so involved in everything we do.
Yeah, and you have a growing team now as well.
Yeah, we keep very lean, but we are slowly adding people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Obviously, you're right now, you're probably growing generally just in terms of users and locations. Do you see yourself maybe expanding outside of food related areas of review, or even going into like recipes, anything like that, other channels?
Yeah, for sure. So when we think about growth, we think about three different levers or dimensions. We think about the dining out journey, we think about geographic, and then we think about categorical growth. And most of our time is spent on the first two, the dining out journey, like all the steps included in going out to eat, and then the geographic, and we talked about a little bit about that. But in terms of categorical, for sure, we think about it. I think when we started, as I told you, it was like literally like even very narrow within food. And over time, we expanded that. And long term, the plan was always to go further. But the restaurant market is massive, and so there's so much to do here. So it will be a bit before we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always changing, especially in cities like New York as well. And obviously, I feel like every question you've answered has been very formulaic. I feel like a McKinsey background in there. How have you guys also obviously came from a really similar work background? So how have kind of both of you been able to kind of divide responsibilities and also kind of use the skills that you learned to build Beli as well?
Definitely. I think there were a few things that were really helpful that I don't think I would have known would have been really helpful coming into this. And I think, well, one, so Elliot was technical, and that was really great because if you have a technical, and it's changing these days a little bit, but if you have someone technical, it's just way easier to get something like this off the ground. And so he was always going to be like the CTO. And then I kind of filled in the gaps. I think for me, the biggest I don't know what it would be. The biggest trait I took from or skill I took from my job and education was just being super, super data driven. We don't do a lot of emotion. It's never like, I feel like this is a good idea. It's like, what do the numbers say? What are our users saying? And we're very, very disciplined about that. And so I think for me, that's probably the number one skill. It's just really just keeping with the numbers and making sure that you're very disciplined in how you're moving. And then I think the other thing that we do that's been really, really helpful, and maybe not something that I took from my career, my prior career, but running super lean and keeping the team really small makes it so priorities are very simple. Because it's like, hey, I have a small team. We can do, 5 things right now. I want to do 1,000, but it's very clear what the 5 most important things are, and then we just do those things. And so the combination of those 3 doesn't really answer your question, which is how we split work. But Elliot's technical, and I lead product, and then we kind of split the marketing.
No, but it does answer. I mean, I feel like honestly, it's probably the biggest struggle as a founder, right? It's like, what are your priorities? What can you focus on? Especially with Beli, is such a huge map, and so many things you can go. So I feel like that's amazing. And you are not currently monetizing, right?
We do test. We test everything. I think what's been important to us is that we monetize in a way that helps our users, and we want to make sure that it's completely aligned with our growth. And the nice thing about Beli is just accumulating so much data. And it's like, how do we give that data back to our users in a way that's actually useful and helps them make decisions? Like, we don't track time spent in the app because Beli's not meant to be a scrolling app. If you're in the app for a long period of time, that means we're probably not doing our jobs. And so very much when we think about monetizing, it's how can we help our users and get them doing things in the real world?
Yeah, absolutely. And what is kind of explain to me the discovery kind of part of the app? Like, do you suggest things based on behavior and data as well, or is it just more natural? Yeah,
so within Beli, the recommendations you get are personalized. So they're based on your list, and we derive your taste, and that was really important to us because we think that's how people eat. It's not like, if I like something, it doesn't mean you should like it, or vice versa. And if I think I don't like something, I don't think you shouldn't like it. And so everything is personalized, and that's been just core.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's also very different from like a Yelp or just like a spreadsheet, right? Like, I think food is obviously very subjective. I get asked this question all the time, being like, oh, like, do you take into account the ambiance, the service? Like, is it just the food? And I think for me, it's like all encompassing. So obviously, if I like, the food and the service was terrible, that kind of goes into my rating as well. So I think Beli does really well in terms of kind of balancing that, all the aspects of like the dining experience, which I think is very different from like a Google review or like a Yelp. So is that something that you were like thinking about when you were building it?
Oh yeah. Really, really important to us. So when after that first summer and we did all that research, and we're like, okay, here's the problem with what users are experiencing, both from like how they're keeping these lists and don't actually have a place to house them, but they're also not writing reviews, and then like online reviews are broken. And the crazy part is like over 90% of Americans report using online reviews to inform decisions, and so everyone's using them, but they're not at all predictive of experiences, and we're like, that doesn't make any sense. And so we were like, what data did we need to collect in order to accurately predict what people will like? And so we spent our first semester after that summer working with an ML expert, like a visiting professor, and being like, okay, like how do we actually collect data? What do we do in terms of ratings? And that's why we do the stack. So in Beli, you say if you like something better or worse than other places you've been to, because it's a lot easier to derive preference from that, and it's actually a lot easier to do that type of rating. And so, yeah, very, very important to us.
And are you kind of customizing? And I know, like, over the last few years, it's been, like, iterated, and I can tell the difference. But, like, when you're, ranking for Charles, and then it should be, like, a restaurant of similar type of, ambiance and food. And how are you iterating so that it's not like I'm, ranking between like a Fort Charles and like a Starbucks? Like, how does that kind of work with the algorithm?
Yeah, so for sure, it's definitely the number one point of feedback and frustration for a lot of people. I think the ranking system is polarizing. So for that example, it would be in two different categories, and so you wouldn't compare them. And that's why we added the categories early on, because people were able to rate some of the other things that they weren't supposed to be able to rate, like coffee shops. But yeah, we're constantly tweaking and trying to figure out how we make it easier, faster, and how we educate people around why we're doing it. So like, it's very important to me to know that you like the hole-in-the-wall restaurant more than like the 3 Michelin star experience you had, because that tells me something about your taste. And so like, we have to ask some of those challenging questions to understand your taste. But then over time, we're like, okay, we know that we can serve you easier comparisons. But yeah, we've done a lot, and we need to do a lot more there.
And I feel like you've been incorporating AI like from the very beginning of the app to like kind of help with the discovery and the recommendations. And of course now there's like a bigger boom. How are you leveraging, AI and ML a lot more now in this version versus previous?
Yeah, so yeah, we were doing the ML stuff before it was cool.
Yeah.
or talked about the way it was now, and we still don't actually talk about how much we do. The AI stuff is interesting. There will be, I think, I talked a little bit about the dining out journey, and that's like the thing we think the most about. It's all the steps included in going out to eat. And we started at the very beginning and the very end of the dining out journey. You hear about a restaurant, you want to remember it, so you bookmark it. And the very end of the journey where you went to the restaurant, you want to remember it and share it with your friends, so you rate it. And we started there for 2 reasons. One, we were competing against the notes of docs Excels that we've talked so much about. They were not built for restaurant discovery, but then 2, that's where all the data sits. And so now what we do is we take all that data and try to do all the other steps in the dining out journey. And a big one of those steps is explore. And we think there's a lot of cool stuff we can do with AI around explore. So if you go in the app and you search, I want whatever type of restaurant, reservation tonight for this many people, where should I go? And we just tell you, instead of it being like a list that you're scrolling through. You might see some stuff there soon in the app. But yeah, we're definitely incorporating a lot more AI as it develops.
Yeah. And I think it's really nice to also like have like tags. So like, oh, this is good for date night. This is good for corporate dinner.
Yeah.
So I think it's obviously very personalized, something that I spend a lot of time on. So super happy to see the different iterations. And something that I really like is a social aspect as well. Yeah. Did you think that this would be like a big part of the app when you first were starting out? Because right now, like, I check it and then I look at my friends and then see like what we've bookmarked to figure out where to go. Yeah. Was that like a big part that you wanted this app to be, more so than just like tracking for yourself?
For sure. So I think especially early on, we got a lot of pushback. We're like, okay, great, you're social media, but you're also a utility. Like, which actually are you? And like, you have to pick one. And we were like, no, you definitely don't need to pick one, because dining is often social, and so part of the utility of dining is the social aspect of it. And so when we had been doing that early surveying, asking people like, do they keep a note, and like, where do they go for restaurant recommendations, the top thing was their friends. And we could, and maybe I'm wrong, but we could build the best recommendation system in the world, and people are still going to go look at their friends and what they think, and it has to do with the socialness of dining and all these other factors that matter. So it was really important to us that it be part of it, and we think of it as part of the utility. But maybe have leaned into it in different ways over time. But yeah, it was always part of the plan.
And I love the leaderboard, obviously, because
Soul's number one on Beli, and you are
very high.
literally shout out.
Plug for myself. But how have you kind of thought about having that in the app? I'm sure that drives obviously a lot of competition. Speaking for myself as well, but also probably drives a lot of people on the app to like be more incentivized to rank stuff. So was that also like always part of the app that you were thinking about? How do you kind of think about developing the leaderboard?
Yeah, so the leaderboard was in from day one, but honestly, it was probably a little bit lucky. And I think when I talked about that 100-person beta we had early days, that was the real takeaway was, oh my God, they care so deeply about the leaderboard. It was people that really, I don't even know they necessarily cared about restaurants and food, but they wanted to be at the top of the leaderboard. And so we're like, oh, this matters. And so we did learn that in that year, and that was probably the biggest learning in the COVID year. But yeah, it was very important. I don't know that we do the best job today with the leaderboards. We're definitely working on them. But gamification has been a big part of the app.
And kind of going off of that, how did you really kind of make users change their behavior? Because I don't know, for me, I feel like, I do go out to restaurants all the time, but I don't feel like I should rank restaurants. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough. Like, how do you kind of, and you also even said part of the problem is that young people were not using online reviews. So how did you kind of make people change that behavior and continue to?
So for us, it was kind of funny like, when people are like, what is your persona? And whether or not it was the foodie or just very type A, like there's some intersection, and we kind of saw both forming in the app. So there were all these people that kept the restaurant list and they cared very, very deeply about where they were going and were doing loads of research. But then there was this other group of people that we saw very early, which was the type of people that were just like, I'm very type A, I need to be organized. I maybe want to be the top of the leaderboard. And then they became foodies. And so it really was this like personal diary. And it's not about, Beli's really not meant to be around like, hey, like I'm like want to rate restaurants to like the 5-star, like the public reviews are, we think like the idea of going on there to like shame restaurants, and that was not the idea. It was like, you're doing this for yourself because you want the list and you want to share it with your friends, and it's supposed to be super low effort, and it's also not supposed to, like, any rating is okay because it's your taste, and that's perfect, and then your ratings don't go anywhere. Like your ratings are seen by your friends, but other than that, we don't expose the reviews publicly, and so it's not like, hey, like I'm writing to like help the random person I don't know go to this restaurant. It's like, hey, I'm doing this for myself and my friends.
Yeah. I mean, the ratings are also like odd because of like SEO rankings and stuff too, right? So like when you Google something, like whatever comes up first is based on like paid ads a lot of the time and like SEO ranking. So versus like Beli obviously doesn't have that. So it's like a lot more natural. Yeah. All right, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like I need to start ranking now.
I know, I'm always like, Brooke, you gotta get on
I
it.
just have Sola, so I'm just like Sola is my personal Beli. It's my personal Beli. So it's hard.
Yeah. And how do you work with restaurants too? I'm sure there's a lot of interest from that side to like get on Beli or have, you know, people on the leaderboard or whoever active users like come and rate and like rate them. So how do you work with restaurants, or do you?
Yeah, so we mostly don't work with restaurants today. When we started building Beli, it was like, hey, there's this huge consumer problem, but it's also a huge problem for the restaurants that were just like, they were getting beaten up, there were fake reviews, like just lots and lots and lots of issues. So we wanted a model that was better for them, and that was always part of the plan. But we also think that trust is the most important thing with our users, and we don't want you going in Beli being like, was that paid for, or is that actually recommended to me? And so we didn't want to break that down, and I think we're still figuring out how do we incorporate the restaurants without breaking that down. We really don't like the idea of in-feed ads, because we think that breaks down trust, exactly to what you were going on. If you're going in the app and you don't know where that's coming from, I don't expect you to trust the recommendations we're giving. And so we work with them a little, like through events and a little bit here and there, but today we mostly are hands off.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns about the influencers like potentially providing reviews that aren't real then? Because I feel like that's kind of like they are paid by restaurants to go there.
Yeah.
Right?
So because reviews aren't public.
Okay. So only rankings are public. Is that what it is?
So no, ratings are not public either.
Really?
And so you have to be following the person in order to see them. So if I'm following an influencer and they got a comped meal or something like that, they would need, I would have to know that.
Okay.
But but yeah, no, it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
I think the difference is like because I get invited to restaurants through like my Instagram page, like obviously if I'm, if it's comped, I tend to write like a good review about if I have a good experience, or like I'll find an aspect of the experience that was positive and talk about it. But I feel like on Beli, I'm so honest that even if I was invited in, I'd be really honest on Beli versus like other parts of social media. Just because, like, I also don't think restaurants, like, know that I am that person that went in. Like, I try to keep it pretty separate, which I really like. And, like, that's why I have the trust to, like, go and see what people actually think. Even if I am following an influencer, like, I'll check the Beli and then, like, I'll check the Instagram and be like, okay, like, which one's real?
Yeah.
So I think, like, that's how, like,
it's like another form of data as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And you've been doing also community events through the Supper Club. How have you kind of built that out? Is that something that you want to expand to other cities? What's your strategy with that?
Yeah, so Beli Supper Club was like, it just felt very natural that we do something in person, and we needed to do something in person. And we also we talked to our users so much, we just wanted to get in the same room with them more often. And so that was kind of where Beli Supper Club came from. I think in terms of expanding it, we're thinking a lot about it. There's a lot of demand for it. People love the community events and meeting new people and making new friends, and we love that so much. I think because we run so lean, it's just a matter of capacity. And so we definitely love the events, and we'll keep doing them, and then we're figuring out how to do it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Have you thought about expanding to CPG products as well, and like within the food space?
Yeah, not really. I'll be honest.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's just so much innovation there.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's so much innovation. It's just the rush. There's so much to do here, and I think we're just heads down on it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Amazing.
And I'm sure you get this question all the time, but what is your favorite restaurant? And has that kind of changed with Beli? Like, have you explored or discovered a restaurant through Beli that you really like as well?
Yeah, so I feel like I should be way better at answering this question than I am.
It's hard. I have no idea.
It's a hard question.
There are so many great restaurants in the city. I mean, I like, and these probably won't be that surprising. I love the Fort Charles, the Kike Crudos. I love Theodora. I love so many different, there are just so many excellent Jua. The Korean scene in New York is just so amazing. In terms of has Beli changed how I explore restaurants, I think we feel an obligation to be checking the recommendations and making sure that they're actually good and actually using the product and make sure that it's useful. And so like when we're traveling especially, we make sure that we only plan through Beli.
That's so funny.
Yeah, we force ourselves to do it,
awesome.
and if we can't do it, then there's a problem, and then we're like, we fix it. But in terms of just how I eat day to day, I think we try more new restaurants than we would otherwise, just because of feeling like we need to. And that's been really cool to just find all these amazing places that I don't think I would have found otherwise. But we loved restaurants so much before this that was always true, and so maybe it's a new level of it, but we were always doing some bit of this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you created you had the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like you're a rare founder that created a solution for yourself. Doesn't always happen. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I feel like I'm inspired. I'm gonna create a Beli account.
Great.
Start
I think you
reviewing.
have it, but
I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sent you an invite.
Okay. I just
Can you just get a credit?
I need to get my
literally,
credit.
you need to get
Yeah.
credit. Okay,
Yeah.
you can resend it to me.
No, it's amazing.
But honestly, just really impressed, obviously, with what you're building. I love it, and I feel like obviously it has resonated so much with young people, so it's awesome. But we always end on this question. Really appreciate you coming on. Is what advice do you give a young person? We have a lot of young listeners looking to start their own company.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Elliot and I debated what I should say. I think starting a company is really, really, really hard. I think in a lot of ways, different founders are put on pedestals, and like the day-to-day is kind of skimmed over a bit. And so I would start with don't. But like if you're going to start a company, I would remember that you're or not even remember, but just know your career is long. And there's a lot of opportunities to try different things. And so if you try and you fail, that's okay. Most founders fail. It's just a reality of how difficult it is. And if you're like, hey, I'm too afraid to do this right now, that's okay too. Do something else and you can do it in a few years. Like I said, I never knew I would be doing this. And who knows what I'll do after Beli. I might be doing this forever and that will be that. But there's a lot of time to decide and recreate and go from there.
Amazing. Awesome.
And I know you're all over social media. Elliot's voice is iconic. But where can we find you on socials?
Yeah, our handle is Beli_eats.
Great. Awesome. Well, everyone, eat Beli. Amazing. Go on there. And as always, you can find us at Women's Plain Pod and all of our socials. And hello at womensplainpod.com if you have any questions. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much
really
for having
appreciate
me.
This
was so
Thanks so
fun.
much for listening. Yeah.
Go Beli.
Awesome.